Okay, we should be good.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Shearer. I'm the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee. Just to do quick introductions here, I'm joined by my fellow trustees, Karen Strong and Tom McCarthy. We're also joined by staff today, our Executive Director, Scott Jarzombek, Assistant Director, Melanie Metzger, our Budget Director, Manager, Adam Stump, and Administrative Assistant Rebecca Delgazo. And with that, is there any public comment?
We have no public comment at this time. If anybody from the public if they wish to make a public comment, we should be receiving an email from that person at publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. That's PUBLICCOMMENT at albanypubliclibrary.org. And public comments would be read at specified times during the meeting.
Thanks, Rebecca. So we are going to start with our one item under unfinished business, which we've been working on for our last couple of Finance Committee meetings, and that's the Board Treasurer job description. We have some track changes, markups from our attorney, as well as committee members that we made between our last meeting and this meeting, and we're just going to be reviewing those changes and seeing if we can walk away from this meeting today with a finalized job description. Is there a way we can view this description with the edits? Oh, there we go. So I'm not sure if anybody else has another suggestion for how to go through this. I was just going to go through top to bottom, line by line, and we just accept the changes as we go, if that makes sense. Okay, I see Karen nodding her head and Tom. Rebecca, do you mind accepting the changes as we go since you have it up on your screen? I'm watching on my screen.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you. So I see the first edit is just obviously to change the title of this from draft APL to Albany Public Library. That seems fine to me. Okay, yep, I'm seeing nodding heads. Accept that change, please and thank you. We really largely have grammatical. Maybe if at this point, if we can go through maybe paragraphs or sections and say if we have any objections. I do think we lost your comments, Karen, due to a technical, something happened in the last hour. I did see them and I have them in my email. I remember a couple of them, so we'll just have to put them back in this document as we go.
Okay. So the only thing I had on the comments is that we had they and
yeah, it was
Bob
a gender
suggested
neutral.
Yeah,
gender neutral comment.
Right. So they instead of he, she, is that, but I don't feel super strongly about that.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think that matches, you know, how everything's being, how business is being conducted.
Yeah, I believe the P&G committee is going to move in that direction. I mean, that's what administration is going to be advising. And I think P&G is open to that. So we wanted to conform to our other policies.
Yeah, I think Bob had already left our last meeting when we had that conversation regarding the other policy. So I think that's why he made these edits. I don't think he was here for our last conversation on the topic. So I see that twice, once in the general responsibilities paragraph and then again in reporting. So we will just not accept those he, she changes. So other than that, is there anything else, any other edits in the general responsibilities paragraph that anybody sees that they disagree with? I think they're largely grammatical or technical in nature.
He did cross out attend the meetings of the Board of Trustees when requested. I'm not sure if that's elsewhere in the document or. if that's,
Yeah, I wish I had more information on that change.
Well,
Um,
I recall from our last meeting where what we ended up was that the last bullet under specific duties says
Oh.
meet with parties as requested, and we decided that would cover it.
thank you for remembering that.
that makes sense. Thank you.
Would you like me to accept that?
Yes, please. I think we can accept everything in the general responsibilities paragraph with the exception of replace they with he, she. We're going to decline that change. Oh,
Too
Wait.
hard?
Yeah.
we're in the, next paragraph. So under reporting, instead of directly supervised, we said we were going to revisit that language. Treasurer will interact with the vice president for finance as the primary financial officer of the board. I think that makes sense. I don't have any problems with that language.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Under specific duties, I think I see two changes. The first bullet points, instead of is an authorized user on the financial accounts, they are the primary authorized user. And then capitalizing board, I'm okay with both of those changes.
If I could just chime in, my 2 cents on it, my perspective is that for a position that is not full-time and really barely even part-time, I don't know that it doesn't make sense to me that they would be the primary authorized user on all of our bank accounts. And I'm also wondering if there is some sort of a separation of duties conflict if the person doing the bank reconciliations is also able to make deposits, make withdrawals, make bank transfers. I'm sure Bob has something to say about this, and obviously he made that edit, but my 2 cents would be, it makes sense for me to be the primary authorized user on the financial accounts, and it really makes more sense for the treasurer to not have access to the bank accounts in the sense that they would be able to move money in any way.
I actually have a logistical question on this.
Sure.
So the primary authorized user, I'm just wondering, is there a difference if you have a login and someone else has a login? Do you both have the same access? Is there actually a primary authorized user, or are you just equal because you both have logins?
Yeah, I don't know that KeyBank's online platform has any sort of setup like that. I think right now we do have one other person who has a username to get in, and I think they have the same exact access that I do.
That's what I was thinking. I've never seen it another way either. I just wanted to confirm that.
We did talk about that last time, and Bob said that he thought that there was ways, he knew the name of the platform on KeyBank that permits different kinds of access.
I do recall that, and there may be a way to do that. I don't know that we've explored that previously, but
yeah. I suspect that he wrote primary because of some kind of legal thing, but I think you're totally right, Adam. whatever that means legally, you know, the person who's performing the reconciliation shouldn't be able to move money. We don't want that, right? That just doesn't seem right. So
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say it goes along with the custodian role that legally the treasurer has to be the custodian of the funds and be the one, you know, the name on the accounts accessing and holding. I think that's where he's going with primary, just, you know, piggybacking off the idea that the treasurer is the custodian of the funds.
I wonder too if that ties into check signing. I mean, ultimately the treasurer is approving the payments by signing the check. So they're sort of acting as a custodian in that way, I suppose. But as far as actually having access to the bank accounts and the ability to move money, that doesn't make sense to me if they're doing the bank reconciliations and signing the checks.
There's no real reason why they would have to move money either, since they're more about reconciling, like there's just no reason.
Is that true? I mean, I get that they don't do it on it. They shouldn't do it on a day-to-day basis, but I mean, the board is the treasurer is the board's responsibility, and the board is the, you know, governing body. And I think what Bob is trying to get at is that I kind of lost my thought, but Bob has been suggesting to us that the treasurer be more involved than our past practice was.
And I guess I'm seeing that too. I'm just wondering how that is actually going to play out logistically and just as far as the processes we have in place. Because as it is, I mean, the treasurer position as it has been, it seems to me at least that it's a position that could, all the work that I would know to train the treasurer on, it would take them maybe 4 hours a month. You know, you could do it over 2 days. So again, I don't know if somebody working that little should be considered a primary authorized user.
I think
But
we need to ask Bob this, right? Because a primary user might be related to what the law says about the treasurer versus you're thinking primary user on the accounts that allows them all this access, which we talked about not allowing. That's my recollection. So we need to ask him.
Yeah, I think we do have to ask him.
So then the only other change under specific duties would just be capitalizing the B in board. I would accept that. Under the expectations paragraph, oh, just added the word residents. I see it now, 100,000 residents. Oh, and he doesn't like our spaces. I would accept, yeah, I would accept residents. And then we had talked about what to title the next section. Bob wrote required knowledges,
Looks like
skills.
Fix that.
Yeah.
Okay. Knowledge, skills, abilities, and attributes. Is that adding or deleting the R in record keeping?
Yeah,
That first line.
Yeah.
So I had more comments here, and you're saying now my comments didn't show up.
They unfortunately went away. I
Okay.
can go into my email.
I have them.
Okay.
I have them in the version that I have. Like the version that was shared with me that I have access to. They still are there. So, oh no, I see that they're there. If you scroll down, I have a possible revision. I didn't make a lot of changes to the first paragraph. I just thought that the two were repetitive. Oh, my comments are gone. That's what's gone.
Yes, the comments are gone.
Okay. So I thought that we talked about good versus basic knowledge, and Adam, what I heard from Adam was that basic is sufficient. And these are required. I don't know how we'd assess that in any case, but these are required knowledge, skills, attributes, and abilities, so that we should be having them. These would be the minimum, right?
Yes.
People have good. So I would suggest changing that first clause to the basic understanding. I like the language in the I also like the bullets, but I'm not going to argue about that. I think it's easier to read, but I think the language in the bullets is more friendly. So what I recommend is that first bullet under possesses and move that up instead of good knowledge. You can see that below is what I suggest. I didn't want to just make all the changes.
So, I mean, that next paragraph where he wrote possible revision.
It was me. I did that.
Oh, you did that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Were you going to tell me how bad it was?
No, I was gonna just say that the point of that paragraph is to replace the whole for. Okay. Yeah.
I had some comments that explained why. But they're gone.
Did you say you have them?
No, I don't know if I do, because I did it right in Google Docs. So if it's not there anymore, I don't know where they'd be.
I'm gonna try to. Just want to see if the comments will come back up with this one.
It's not like they were earth shattering. It's okay.
No, I'm not seeing anything. Oh,
Sorry.
Bob. Okay, back to this one.
Yeah, I just thought some of the language was a little more friendly and less authoritative.
Can you scroll a tad up, Rebecca? So just we can, yeah, thank you. So we can compare. So it was
And they
changing good to basic, and then what are the other changes?
Instead of ability to follow oral and written instructions, I think I wrote ability to work with the Board of Trustees, library staff, and auditors virtually and in person. That was combining the ability to work with bullet with the oral and written instructions, essentially.
Where did the ability to follow oral and written instructions come from originally?
It's just a standard job spec item. That was from the job spec from the school district treasurer that Bob shared with us.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay going with Karen's recommendation.
Yeah, I am as well.
Do you want to replace all of this, correct?
We can just accept it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Will that accept it? I don't see that as a possible accepting. I think I just will copy and paste it.
Okay.
And I don't know why it's not like, yeah.
And then again, just checking with Adam about those, the knowledge, skills, abilities, and attributes. Does that make sense to you? Is it reasonable, acceptable?
Yeah, I think so.
And John, now that I'm seeing it, I think you probably should write proficiency in Microsoft Excel. Thank you.
Oh.
And then I think in the next paragraph, I just see a bunch of capitals to lowercase. And then he struck our review section. I don't feel strongly about any of that. I would be okay with those changes.
Good.
I think, I don't know if it's going to show up on the shared screen, but yeah, what I just highlighted there as described under A, I think we can get rid of that. That's kind of legalese, and we could just say 1 year of record keeping experience or financial record keeping experience, because that's what we say under A. And then it reads like a sentence.
That makes sense.
You want me to make that change, Rebecca?
Yeah, go ahead. It does show up, so it's good.
And then we're accepting the rest of the changes in the document, I believe. The lower
Just-
cases and, oh, go ahead, Karen.
I definitely don't have a problem with lower cases. That's all good. I'm not sure. I can't remember if we talked about not leaving in how we're going to review this in the document.
Yeah, I was surprised when it came back struck. I'm not sure.
I just feel like for institutional memory, it's the kind of thing that's going to be helpful to future trustees.
Yeah. Because I know on all of our policies, we have this at the bottom, or like the date last revised and a review schedule. I understand this isn't a policy, but I would agree with you, have it somewhere so we know. Yeah.
I guess if it doesn't go here, it can go in our committee description.
I think we have it in our committee description, either something about overseeing the treasurer position. I don't remember if we specifically mentioned job description, but I believe some aspect is in the committee description on an as needed basis, so we don't have a date attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's doing that too.
Maintain the job description of the board treasurer and conducts initial interviews of candidates ongoing.
Anyway, I just think that's another place it could go if it's not appropriate for some reason, that other document.
Do you mean like updating the description to have, to put it in for an annual review or biannual review?
If we think that that's if we think that's what we should do, yeah, that would make sense, because that's right, that we refer to that to help guide the work for the year.
That makes
So if it's
sense.
something more.
Yeah, and I actually wrote this initially. I had put annually prior to the appointment of the treasurer for the following fiscal year. So we appoint a board treasurer every year, even if we keep the same treasurer in our July board meeting. So that would be a May or June finance committee meeting. I think we meet in May to possibly, was it a budget mod, or I think we meet in May for another reason. So we could always add that to the May finance meeting to just do a quick review of the treasurer position.
I think that's the last budget
think-
meeting before the new fiscal year. One of them.
I think that makes sense to do it. I don't, it's not going to take as long as it did this time, right? It's just at all. Like we're changing a lot here, especially this year, right? It's just a few months away. But I think, in the past, if things have gotten away from us, if we had been reviewing it, perhaps we could have made adjustments as needed. So
I would agree with that. What, Rebecca?
Did you want to leave this then?
We'll take it out and then we'll update our committee description.
Okay.
So with that, I think we just have the one question left for Bob regarding the primary on the account. And I did not ask Bob prior to this meeting what we need to do, if we should approve this as a committee, send it to the board meeting Tuesday, show the board. I don't know if this needs to be voted on at the board level or not. I guess,
I didn't
would
see why
we?
shouldn't.
What?
I think we should.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, should we vote on it now in committee with that one question mark and send it to the board and open the conversation there about the primary? Or should we make a decision, send it, and then open discussion? I'm just not sure whether we should vote with an outstanding question or not.
I think you should change it to what you want and see if legal counsel even picks up on it and go from there.
I agree with that. I think we should change it back to Anne and just make it more open.
Okay.
If I could just chime in again, I also wonder if this person doesn't actually have the ability to move money around or make deposits or do withdrawals, I also wonder about the necessity of having $1 million bond on them. I did reach out to our insurance company about that. She predicted the cost would be about $1,500 to $2,000 to do that. And it's a much more rigorous process. The bonding company had there's a lot of additional paperwork and things like that that go along with it. Not that it's not possible or anything, it's just, again, I'm sure Bob has something to say about this that I can't comment on, but.
We talked about it at length, I believe.
Okay.
Are you suggesting the bond amount should be lower? Is that?
I mean, it's been at 480,000 for many years, and I do just wonder if, they don't have access to, they don't have the ability to actually take any money out of the bank account or do any kind of transfers. I don't know that they'd have.
I mean, I think they need to have ability to access the funds because they serve as the custodian.
I guess that's the question. I mean, if that's something that Bob insists upon, then, I can't argue with that, but,
Technically, wouldn't they have ability to write checks? Like they have access to the checks, and even though they are the signer, they still have access to that, and that is currency.
I don't think, I mean, the way we've done it, the treasurer has not had access to the checks. The checks are locked up.
They're
and
already
are
printed.
printed by somebody else and then given to the treasurer to sign.
Gotcha.
Okay, but I would agree with Karen. We can change it back to and for now. So reject the change, vote it out of committee, and then ask council prior to or at the next board meeting coming up on Tuesday. Any other revisions we'd like to make before this goes to a vote? If we're all set, I would take a motion.
I'm gonna.
I get into board docs.
Yeah, 1 second.
I'll move to do it though.
Karen moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the job description? Seeing none. All in favor as we get into board docs? Oh, do I need to refresh, Rebecca?
I don't think so. You should have a pop-up right now.
We don't have it.
No?
No.
Oh, there it is.
Maybe?
It's here now.
Oh,
Oh,
I see
there it
it.
is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I just refreshed. Wait, let's see if I can get it back.
If not, you can verbally state it.
Here it is.
There you go.
Okay. Yay. After what, at least 3 meetings of looking at this, I'm very excited to be moving this along. So thank you, everybody. I know this has been a really long process, but I think we have a really good version of this description, and we all have a much deeper understanding of the treasurer role. So thank you, everybody. Moving on to new business, we have 2 items today. The 2021 budget modification. This will be the second budget mod we're looking at for this year. And then the 2021-2022 recommended budget draft. So Scott or Adam, if you want to take us through the budget mod, I'm not sure, Karen or Tom, if you had a preferred way of doing this. I looked at the memo, I looked at the Excel. I think for me, I'm just going to have to walk line by line through the Excel to fully ask, everything I have. But Scott or Adam, if you want to
So
present.
Sarah, from now on, for the staff that are kind of the liaisons to committees, I'm going to let those staff members present. And then I'll just give an executive opinion, which is kind of in the memo at the end of just my opinion. It's almost going to be in alignment with my staff almost always. And then I'll just answer questions with Adam.
Sounds
So
good.
I'll let Adam present first.
Okay, yeah, I'll go through the budget mod first. So does everyone have the Excel document?
Do you want to share your screen, Adam? Or do you still want me to share?
I mean, if you can share that Excel document, it's the same one that is on board docs.
Now I learned how to share an Excel.
There we go.
Yep. All right, so the budget mod is the middle 3 columns here. So we'll start with revenue. We did modify the other revenue section. We reduced that by about 76,000. Part of that is the pilot payment. We got a quote from the city that our current pilot payment would be around 450, which is 30,000 less than our previous payment.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah,
Hasn't that come in at the end of December each year?
it has traditionally, but this year is a little bit different. I guess there are some payments they are still waiting on, so they don't actually have all the money yet. I've been going back and forth with the city treasurer for the last couple of weeks. He told me he might be able to get us part of the money this week. So far, I haven't heard back from him. So I would expect there's going to be some delays before we get the full amount of the pilot, whatever it may be. But 450 is the quote that he gave me.
So there must be some that have dropped off.
I'm not sure into the exact reasons why they haven't received the payments.
We were provided a schedule not too long ago. Not too long ago, years ago. So we should probably look at that schedule to see if any property's been taken off. I know Adam has requested from the treasurer's office that we get an idea of what the schedule is for the pilot payments for future budgeting. But I just remembered we had actually gotten one a while ago. So we might want to look at that one. But I think
the only reason it should be actually lower is that their payments have come off.
Yes.
Right? Not because.
Well, I mean, if they're not getting payments, it's not.
That I understand.
Yeah, it's not like the tax bill. Tax bills should always be the same no matter what. It needs to be made whole by the county. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's the drop in funds is because I would assume the drop in funds is somebody has come on, a project has come off. Yep. But we'll see. We probably should get a clarification on that just in case, because then it might come in at 480 and we've done all this for nothing.
Right. Well, not just that. It's that, we should get what we're due based on what they take in. Like, I understand that part. If they're not getting the money, I guess they don't need to give it to us. But just making sure it's one of those two reasons why it's lower, as opposed to a different reason.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, the number he gave me, it was sort of informal. For all I know, it was a very rough estimate of what the actual payment will be. So unfortunately, that's all we have to go on right now. We do probably need to take a look at that document we had gotten previously. Maybe that would shed a light on things. But for the moment, we're planning on 450.
And when is it coming in?
We don't have a final date yet. I mean, he told me this week, maybe we could get a partial payment. He said about 90%. I haven't heard anything this week, so I'm going to continue to reach out. So hopefully it's any day now that we'll get the majority of the payment, and then obviously at that point we'll have a lot better idea of what the final payment is going to be.
Okay.
All right. So the other big changes are fees and sales, which we had already reduced in the previous mod, obviously being closed. We're not really doing any business at all in that area. So 20,000 from the previous mod, that may have even been a bit optimistic. We've bumped it down to 5,000, and we may not even hit that. We were open for appointment services for several weeks. That brought in a little income, but ultimately we are going to be very short in that line.
I should have pulled a treasurer's report, but do you know what we've brought in year to date, 1 or 2,000?
You know, I don't have the exact figure in front of me.
Not a problem. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, it's somewhere in that area, I believe, like maybe 3,000. And a lot of that is actually money from March that we took in the week that we closed down. That money had just been sitting in the safes at the branches, and you know, because nobody was going to do branch runs and picking up the money. So there was maybe $1,000 that came from just those couple of days. So then the other big change is interest income. I believe in 2019, we did like over 100,000 in this line. I think even over like almost 120,000. And this line is very dependent on market changes, the market value of our investments, which the market value has gone down in the last several months. And we've actually seen, I guess they would call it an unrealized loss on investments. Over the last several months, we've also been holding on to a bit more cash in our merchant account than we have in years past. I think there was some concern that maybe we wouldn't get a full tax levy payment. So just out of an abundance of caution, we've been holding on to a bit more cash, which reduced the amount of interest we were able to get. You know, we weren't maximizing our investment potential. So we're projecting about 40,000 for the year. I mean, that is variable depending on market performance. I mean, that could change. Maybe we'll get lucky and the value of our investments will go up a little bit in the next couple of months. But for now, we are projecting a $76,000, almost $77,000 reduction in other revenue.
I'm sorry to go back.
Yeah.
The New York State and federal grants that increased, is that money, do we already have 100% of that in our possession, or are we waiting for anything?
So the federal grants, yes, we got that. That's the E-rate money. We have already received that in its entirety. The New York State grants, we just received our central library fund check. That was about 162,000. We had previously received part of our LASA payment, which also factors into that line. That was about 26,000. So my understanding is, based off of an email from Tim at UHLS that went to Scott that he forwarded to me, is that there will be another payment going out soon. I believe it's for part of the, I think our LASA payment, we got like 72% of the full payment. So my understanding is that they are going to get funding from the state to pay some of that back to us. And also the way we're going to have to account for the state grants going forward, because we get the money from UHLS, it's they have a calendar January to December fiscal year. So our 2021 state grants line is actually factoring in half of the projected 2020 payments and half of the projected 2021 payments. So after doing all that math, that's what we're coming up with. And the UHLS payment schedule has been a bit, I mean, we just got the central library funds. Usually we would have gotten it, 8 months ago. So the payment schedule there we may have to shift some things around. Obviously, if we get money after July 1st, that is meant for the previous year, we'll have to apply it to the new fiscal year. So we'll see how all that shakes out, but for now we're projecting about 195,000 in revenue for this, before July 1st.
I have a question about investments.
Sure.
So who manages our investments for us?
Well, we have a key bank representative. It's a separate. He specifically works with our investment account, and basically he presents us with investment opportunities. I will go back and forth with him about, if we do have excess cash in our merchant account, I'll contact him and say, do you have any opportunities for investment to present? If he does, I'll usually run them by Scott, and if he's okay with it and it's not too much cash, then we'll usually pursue the investment based on his recommendation.
We have very limited. There's a
Right.
It's very limited what we can invest in.
Right.
Right. I knew that. So that's why I was surprised to see the amount go down so much, because that to me would say, well, did things mature and did bonds mature and then you have to go to a lower interest rate?
We held on to, and this was my fault, we held on to too much cash for too long.
Okay.
So where we usually would have most of our cash invested, we did not this time. We held on to it because we just weren't, between the change in fiscal year and also the pandemic, we just were, we were concerned with whether or not we were going to get any money, or that we might get limited money at first. So we held on to a lot more cash than we normally did.
So that's the primary reason. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for explaining that.
And we do have to remember that this line will go down as we spend down fund balance. So we have,
because fund balances. I mean, I'm looking at the under your balance sheet. There's only 2.3 million in our treasury notes.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Usually that's what we've had in the investment accounts, usually around 2 million, a little over 2 million. So, I mean, that amount doesn't correspond exactly with any of the fund balances per se, but
no, and I understand that part. But that's
certainly is if
we can
we
move on.
continue to use our unassigned fund balance, we may have to pull money out of investments and use that to essentially put that in the unassigned fund balance, or we'd have to shift our fund balance amounts around. I mean, this is another conversation, but
right. I mean, we'd have to be spending down our accounts a lot before we get there.
Yeah,
right?
But you have to also think about it that we kind of hold on to things in ratios. So, don't think of it as that 2.x million won't be touched until we need it. It will probably be touched earlier because we'll have to move some money out of that account to sit in an account to be spent in a shorter time frame. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's just that if they're treasury notes, don't they mature at certain rates?
Yeah, but there are sometimes we won't, when they mature, we might not turn them over, or we're going to turn them over at a smaller amount because we then need that. We need liquidity. Using the term right, I'm not a financial analyst.
Me neither. I get it.
I think liquidity is the correct word to use.
You can access the money. Yeah.
We need it to be easier to access the money. I don't think it's going to be a problem in the next few years, but it's definitely something the board needs to be aware of because at some point it will have an impact.
Okay, so was there any more questions on the revenue part of the budget mod?
Not on the revenue specifically, but I did want to talk about the change in which fund balance is being used from unassigned to assigned and part of assigned, or part of unassigned.
Right. So yeah, the 202,000, that is the prior year encumbrances that we had to record at the end of the stub year. So that is now sitting in an assigned fund balance account. That was part of the whole fund balance memo and approval process we did before. So I mean that money is already spent. It's just a way of recording it so we don't have to it's not coming from the unassigned fund balance, basically. So it's
So we only put the 202, 334 in the assigned. So basically we're dumping that, and then we still need an additional 49, 537 coming from unassigned to meet our expenditures.
that's correct. So essentially the 202,000, that cancels out the corresponding expenses, which are also factored in here, all the prior year encumbrances. So it just cancels each other out. And then the difference then between revenue and expenses is we're projecting is gonna force us to take almost 50,000 out of the unassigned fund balance.
Got it.
Okay.
I was going to ask a question about that too, but I actually figured it out before the meeting. I find that the whole thing is very confusing, but between the audit and the memos you wrote, I figured it out.
Yes, I don't think we're ever going to have to go through the prior year encumbrance process ever again. So that's not something we need to worry about going forward.
We'll chalk that up to the stub year.
Stub year, pandemic.
Yeah, no, don't even, it's fine.
It's a new norm every day.
All right, so we'll move on to the expenses. Start with payroll. So we are projecting some savings there, about 211,000. Most of that is coming from part-time salaries, obviously, with the limited services we're offering. Part-time hours have not been where they would be normally during a normal year. So we are trending pretty low there. We did increase full-time salaries a little bit, almost 40,000. We filled a number of full-time vacancies. I think we hired 4 full-time clerks, full-time librarian. So that factored into that increase. The retirement system payment, that's already been made, and that was a little bit lower than what we had previously projected. So that's a little bit of savings on that line. Payroll taxes, processing fees, the majority of the savings there is due to part-time salaries, part-time hours not being there's just not as many of those, and also the FFCRA program has allowed us to save a bit of money in payroll taxes. So that's kind of where we're trending in that line. Still with the, you put it all together, it's a savings of 211,000 we're projecting. So we'll move on to occupancy. We did reduce North Albany services to 0. We have not been invoiced by them in many months. And it's our understanding that we're not going to be on the hook for the remaining payments for the rest of the fiscal year. yeah, it's still kind of a question mark long term, but we'll see. As far as this year, though, we don't expect to be invoiced. So that's a savings of almost 20,000. Utilities, we did reduce that a little bit as well. Obviously, with the buildings not being fully operational, using a little bit less power, a little bit less time on the phone. So a little savings there. The 1509 in building repair, that's prior year encumbrance. Otherwise, we didn't change it. Service contracts, we didn't change. Custodial supplies, the 6180, that is prior year encumbrance. The remaining 50,000, we did increase that. That is PPE expenses that we submitted for reimbursement from FEMA, but it's still kind of up in the air as to whether or not we're actually going to get reimbursed for that. We would have to appeal their decision. They basically already told us that the majority of our claims were not eligible, but I guess since Biden took office, there's been some policy changes related to this that we're looking into now to see if maybe we do have a better chance of appealing and getting some of that money back. Right now, it's still up in the air, though, so we did a budget for that possibility that we are just going to have to pay that extra 50,000 out of pocket. Vehicle maintenance, we bumped that up a little bit. There was actually a lot of work done on the vehicles in the past couple of months, so we are trending a little high there. And we didn't change construction grant expense or building improvements.
I have a question.
Sure.
This feels like a former lifetime, but the contract we entered into with the maintenance company to do the additional weekend cleanings, how long of a contract did we sign? Because I believe I had to be pre-COVID. And is that would be under maintenance service contracts, not custodial supplies, correct? Because it's a service contract.
Yes, that's
What
under
are we?
maintenance contract.
What are we paying annually, and how long is the contract term for?
I can tell you we pay almost $2,100 a month. So that comes out to a little over 25,000 a year.
And have they been coming in the buildings even though we've been closed? Yes, okay.
I'm not actually sure of the length of the contract we signed with them. That would be, I don't know if you have any knowledge of that, Scott, or?
I'm looking for the contract.
Okay.
Oh, it's not a big deal.
I
mean, because as
recall-
we oh, go ahead, Tom.
I recall the board approved only a 1-year contract at our last February board meeting.
Yeah, I have the same recollection.
So the contract should be expiring? Okay.
I don't know when it was signed, but
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously I hope we're moving in the right direction toward reopening as vaccine rollout continues, but I was just wondering if there's any potential savings due to not consumers, patrons, not actually being in the buildings right now, if that was a necessary expense, or if we were coming up on a renewal, if we could potentially kick it out a month or two just to get a little bit of a savings.
So it looks like it was done 2/1/20. I've got the contract. I don't have the executed contract.
I believe we're actually paid up through February at this point. So if that contract is indeed ending in February, we should, that is maybe something we should look into.
I found the executed one. Signed 5/11/20.
Oh, okay.
So we might, but
Was it
Yes,
retro?
Something we're trying to change in our shop is to not have everything be signed 3 months after it starts. Yeah, agreement dated May 11th, 2020. Begin service May 11th, 2020.
I remembered it was agreed upon, and then there was a delay because I think of COVID.
Yeah, so it's a 1-year term. So it's up in May.
Okay. I mean, obviously, cleaning is not something we should be cutting back on during the pandemic. I just wasn't sure because I know this contract is supplementing our custodial staff. So I wasn't sure with our own staffing, if we have staff looking for hours or what the situation is. But I just wanted to put it on the radar if, there's something we can do with that.
Right now, all of our facility staff are full time.
Okay.
They're maxed out on hours. Actually, some of what Adam and I are not struggling with, but talking about a little bit in our budgets, our facility staff get overtime. So this is more just supplemental cleaning to help out. And it's been big because they do the bathrooms. So
Okay.
this is kind of a benefit to staff that staff don't have to worry about bathrooms at particular locations.
Say no more. Understood. I think that was all I had in occupancy.
Okay, so we did go over 30, a little over 30,000 in occupancy. So moving on to material services. The books and AV increase, that is all prior year encumbrances. We didn't touch it besides that. Periodicals we didn't touch. The central library and central book aid lines, those were altered to correspond with the central library aid money that we've actually received. So it was a percentage cut from the previous figures, which represented what we would have paid had we gotten 100% of the funds. But those essentially offset part of the New York State grant revenue that we have recorded here. Digital content, those are prior year encumbrances. And programming are prior year encumbrances as well. So most of the changes in that section are related to prior year encumbrances. So that's why it's over by about 28,000.
I'm sure we have talked about this on multiple occasions, but just remind me, because I would have expected our digital content line to increase during the pandemic, but I see our books and audiovisual materials increased by almost 45,000. Did we put some sort of digital, or why do we have the 44,000 increase in books and audiovisual?
So like I said, that was prior year encumbrances. So that was,
sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so that was all just books and AV material that was ordered at the end of the stub year, but not invoiced until after July 1st.
We did a lot of ordering of material in like around this time of year, like the February, March, and April. And because of its pre-orders. So we booked it knowing that the stuff was going to get published in April and May, and then it didn't get published because of the pandemic. So that's why there's the expenditures of that nature.
Got it.
I think also our main vendors like Baker and Taylor, Midwest Tape, they weren't shipping anything during, the.
Yeah, I don't think we got stuff in until like June.
Yeah, and so that's why in June, and that also coincided with us coming back into the building a bit more. I think in June there was just a lot of ordering going on, trying to spend down that budget because we couldn't order anything during March, April, May, the prime of the pandemic. So that's why that is so high. All right. So
are ebooks and audiobooks under the books and audiovisual materials or digital content?
Audiobooks, physical audiobooks like CDs are under the audio visual materials, but digital audiobooks would be under digital content.
Thanks.
So we'll move on to administrative. Let's see. Office supplies, that was a prior year encumbrance. Bank fees, we did have to bump that up a little bit. We got hit with about a $2,500 bank fee at the end of the year. Some of our bank rates, it was explained to me by our banker, it's not worth going into, but the bottom line is that we're probably going to have to pay more in annual bank fees for the foreseeable future. So we did bump that up to 9,000. Memberships we left alone. Postage, we cut 2,000 there. We're not doing a lot of ILL shipments, which is where a lot of our postage money goes to usually. So that is probably going to be a little low this year. PR, that 10,000, that's prior year encumbrance. Train and travel, that's another line that obviously with the pandemic, it just hasn't been that many opportunities for training and travel. Obviously no conferences anywhere that anyone's going to.
No travel for the conferences, but a lot of the stuff that we normally would pay for went free because they went digital or virtual,
Yeah.
or they understood that a lot of the library staff was going. That's how people were essentially employing during the pause, is by, hey, if our employees, since they can't be in the building, if they can do training. So there was a lot of traditional paid services that went free for a period, so we didn't have to pay for them.
Community relations too, that usually is tied to public events, things of that nature. So that has been cut in half as well. Professional services, I believe that 12,000, that was prior year encumbrance, and we didn't touch it otherwise. Tax cert payments, we did bump that up to 125. We're already over 100 now, and that's just because we've paid off past due tax cert payments from previous fiscal years that they billed us for. So normally it shouldn't be that high, but this year we may hit 125. ULON fees, those did go up. That was part of UHL has provided us with a fee schedule there, so slight increase there. And liability insurance, just a couple small things. I think getting Melanie bonded and our cyber insurance, I think, went up a little bit. So we bumped that up a little. So overall, almost 27,000 increase there. And if we move on to IT, all of that is prior year encumbrance. It's all related to Envisionware. So that was obviously a major project that started before the end of the fiscal year, kind of during the pandemic, but wasn't completed or invoiced until after July 1st. So these are all prior year encumbrances.
I do have a different question on IT though.
Yeah.
Scott, I don't believe, sorry, I can't remember anymore. I know you were in the last facilities meeting with us, and Tom, I don't remember if Adam or Melanie, you were there, but we talked about IT coming under the capital fund. So I'm just trying to figure out IT services and software I could see in an operating budget. Would that leave potentially moving hardware from an operating budget to the capital fund, or I'm not sure what would, oh, Scott, you're muted.
Sorry, Ripley was not happy with the Amazon van. No, the idea is larger, like capital. not for like, not like for replacement computers or things like that, but the larger stuff that we've had to pay for, like new servers, the telephone upgrade, that's what we're looking at as capital investments. We're really looking at equipment as just that, as equipment. I know when I started in libraries, computers were big investments. They were often kind of treated as capital, but I don't see us doing an ask there. It's really for like the larger kind of district wide stuff.
Got it. Thank you.
And I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes, but I trust Adam and Becky will message me if Adam's gone off the rails and tried to seize power. So
Well, I think that's it on the budget mod, unless anyone has any other questions on it.
I do not have any further questions.
Me neither.
Yeah. So the upshot is that we are using less fund balance than we anticipated.
Correct. Yeah, we're still using unassigned fund balance, but about $130,000 less than we had anticipated in the previous mod. So a little bit of a savings.
So this is the first time we've ever been off by sub 2%. And it's pretty close to 1%. My goal is always, yeah, Sarah knows, my goal is always to be 2% on, 1 or 2% on either side of the budget. So in other words, there's going to be years where we may go over, most years we may go under by a little bit. So this was the most accurate budgeting we have done
Down.
That's
for a long time. So
fabulous.
I want to thank Adam.
Fabulous. One and two. This is, how could you even plan for this year, right? This year is so not plannable. So that's even more impressive.
But I just want to thank Adam and the board, because the board's been supportive in us trying to do this.
Cool. No, that's great. I don't have any other questions.
With that, I will take a motion to approve this budget modification and send it to the full board.
So moved.
Is there a second? I see Karen. Any further discussion on the budget modification? Seeing none, jumping over to board docs. All in favor? Motion carries. Budget modification approved. Last item on the agenda is the 2021-2022 budget draft. I know you have to jump off, Scott. Did you want to just make a general comment? I read the materials, but if you want to make a general comment.
Yeah, I mean, my general concern is that it's going to be a rough ride, as expected. But this is the reason why we carry fund balances. So my suggestion to the finance committee and the board is not to touch the tax levy. Just because I think that it's going to be rough for everybody. And that I think we can, this is why we had the money stuffed in the mattress. So, we're going to have this time next year, we're going to have some interesting conversations. But for right now, we're in a strong enough financial place that we can handle this. The upside is if things improve relative, if things continue to improve at the pace that they're improving, some of the income lines will improve. But with that said, we have to factor in that there's a strong possibility that fall will not look as bad as this past fall, but fall may not be as fall 21, I can't keep track, won't look like fall 2020, but it won't look like fall 2019 either. I'm sorry, Tom. Tom, whenever I talk, I could see Tom's face like, Scott's such a bummer. But we just have to really prepare for that. So that's why we've kind of done the modest kind of analysis. Right now, things are really good. And my hope is that they're going to continue to be good. But we're still in a pandemic and there is going to be some backslide. Let's just hope it'll be less than we've projected financially.
And actually, if I can just ask you one budget question, again, I
Sure.
know you have to jump off and then I will let Adam go over the whole thing. My real question, if we can pull up the spreadsheet again, is really on staffing, because I know in the past that's been the big budget line, which has always been a question mark. We have a staff of 130, half part-time, half full-time. Even when, we're fully perfectly staffed, people give 2 weeks notice, and then filling that position is always going to take longer than 2 weeks, and we're always going to come under. I think the increase from the current mod to the proposal, well, I see under expenditures, the total category increase for payroll and related is almost 460,000. Do we think that we're actually, is that just a conservative, accurate, if everything is perfectly staffed? So we think we're generally going to come in under it, but we obviously budget for the whole thing.
I'll say this, that Adam was smart enough to separate full-time and part-time salaries and has provided a much more accurate projection on full-time salaries. Full-time salaries have there are much less question marks on full-time salaries. So he's done a really good equation. This really reflects, if we continue full staffing, no one leaves the organization and everybody gets the step raises, that they all get good reviews and get their step raises, then this is what our full-time salary will look like.
So this is bringing back all of our part-time.
The part-time is where we've reduced. And
right.
Part of that is because we're using less part-time staff, and we probably will for a little while. But also part of it is just looking for savings. So we have to have a conversation with the board needs to have a conversation about hours. One, and two, the business office has to be much better at projecting part-time use and budgeting part-time hour use. So it's kind of a twofold thing. We think we can create some savings by being a little bit smarter about how we present the part-time budget to to managers. Simultaneously, we will have to kind of do some restructuring when it comes to hours.
Yeah, because I just see the increase of almost 70,000 in part-time. So I know we went down about 10,000 in this budget mod from what we had originally budgeted. We had originally budgeted 461 for part-time salaries. We're probably going to come in at 452, so 9,000 or so less. But then we're forecasting 520,000. So yeah, that 70,000 jump.
I think you're actually looking at the New York State retirement line there.
Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. I should have my Excel open so I can highlight the cells.
So our full-time salaries are going up by about 40,000. Our part-time salaries are going down by about 171,000, or really 172,000.
Wait, part-time is going down I'm seeing up by 54,000.
That's this year.
Right, yes. Scott's talking about the budget mod.
Oh, I see. From the original budget of 717. Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
But this budget will inform us of some decisions moving forward. And we just have to keep that in mind.
Okay, I am done. If you would like to walk us through, Adam.
Okay, sure.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Scott.
So Adam, before you start,
Yeah.
I just have a question about the documents. So this Excel doc has a few numbers that are slightly different than Scott's memo.
Now, which memo are you looking at? Because there was an outdated memo, I think, that was on Board Docs earlier.
I'm looking at the one that is in is in board docs now under 4.02, and it's called 2021-22 February budget draft. And like it says, total revenue is 9.692 million, but
So the one I'm seeing in board docs, it's called 2021-22 February budget draft, and then 2 in parentheses. And that one, I believe, matches up with what we have on the spreadsheet.
Tom, what is it you're
I guess-
referring to? Because maybe I can try to pull it up and see what you're looking at.
well, maybe it does now. Okay, sorry.
Are you good?
Um,
Don't just settle.
yeah,
You have to did you refresh or
yeah. Okay, I guess it's good now. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So we'll start with the other revenue. We left pilot at 450, just based on what the most recent estimate was from the city. State grants we bumped up to per Tim. It's a 5% cut from what we would have expected to receive for 2020 pre-pandemic. So hopefully that's what we end up getting.
Which is actually good because we were up expecting a 20%.
That's right. They had initially planned for a 20% cut, but yeah, they updated that news, and that is the understanding now, that there's going to be they're going to get extra money from the state and be able to pay out the majority of those payments to us. So we'll hope for the best there. Federal grants, the E-rate is slightly different each year. So we just went with it, 35,000. It's been a little less than that in years past. It was a little more.
And for that, this is a bid year. So we currently have the bidding process is open for our internet services. And so the window is open until March 2nd, and then we review the bids. And generally in years past, things have come down when we do a bid for these, because as we keep going forward, there's more, competition? So the prices are coming down for internet service rather than going up. And this will lock us into a 3-year contract. So if we're hoping now that we'll see actually a reduction in that cost, but it will also mean we usually get reimbursed by E-rate for that.
So that is just an estimate for now. The construction grant, that's also an estimate. I don't know that there's actually any projects that have been applied for at this point, but that was Scott's idea to just leave that in there, and obviously it corresponds with the construction grant expense, so it sort of cancels each other out. So that's just kind of a placeholder. Fees and sales, we did bump that up to 14,000. That may even be a little optimistic. That is sort of assuming that we are going to be open at least a couple of months for something close to full service operations. So we can actually start getting that CDTA commission, start getting those, print fees, fax fees, and all of that. I mean, we were doing, 3, 4, 5,000 a month in those fees combined pre-pandemic. So I don't know that we'll get back to that anytime soon. But also if we're open for appointment services too, I mean, hopefully the entirety of the 21-22 fiscal year, we'd be open for at least appointment services. So we're hoping we can get up to that figure, but it still represents obviously a significant decrease if you go back over to the left and see the original pre-pandemic approved budget. I mean, it's still significantly less than 80,000. So until we really get back to something resembling normal, we're not going to, that line is going to be much lower than it has in years past. Interest income too, I think we're hoping for a little bit more investment maximization and hopefully better market trends as well. So we did bump that up a little bit from the budget mod figure, and rent is stable. So overall, the other revenue actually did go up a little bit, almost 16,000. So on the revenue side, it could be worse, but we are still projecting a fund balance usage of 355,000 almost. So that's a lot higher than, I mean, obviously in recent years, we're always making money, even if we're projecting to use a little bit of fund balance, we always seem to make money. So if this projection actually turns out to be correct, I mean, it is, that is significant, particularly if that is the trend in future years, using that much fund balance. Okay, so moving on to expenses. As Sarah pointed out, the payroll section did go up by 459,000, which is pretty significant. Full-time salaries, it does seem like a pretty sizable increase. Part of that is because we did fill several vacancies that were empty for a good chunk of this fiscal year. So assuming that we are fully staffed, we don't lose any full-time staff throughout the year. Everyone gets their raises. You have to factor holiday work time and overtime into the equation too. I mean, I have a pretty detailed spreadsheet for full-time employees and their salaries, and that's where it's at. So I mean, usually we do have at least one or two people resign, and you know, if it's a librarian that resigns, I mean, that can drop that figure down by, you know, tens of thousands if it doesn't get backfilled. But if we're fully staffed, I would expect it to be around this figure. So that is a significant increase. Part-time, we went with a flat 600,000. Again, it represents a reduction from the original 2021 budget of 717. You know, I don't think we expect to be fully operational for the entire year, or even, I don't know, I don't want to speculate too much about that, but we at least expect to be a bit more operational than we were in this fiscal year, I would say. So it is a little bit higher than the budget mod amount. And again, raises are factored into this as well. The New York State Retirement System, they released a projected invoice for our 21-22 payment, and this is the figure they gave us, about 521,000, which is way more than we've paid in recent years. Almost 70,000 more than what we paid this last time. So hopefully that's not a trend that continues. That's a pretty big hit, and if that keeps going up, that would be tough.
What causes that to go up?
You know, I can't go into too much detail about that. I think it's a pretty
Does it have to do with
application. What's that?
Does it have to do with how well the pension fund's investments did?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, as far as like the specifics of it, I can't really speak to that, but I go by what they tell us. So, I mean, usually we do get, once we actually get the invoices, it's usually a little bit lower than what they've projected, but I wouldn't expect it to be, it's never significantly lower really. So I do think we need to plan on paying this much.
Okay.
So that's a pretty sizable chunk of the payroll section. Payroll taxes, we no longer have FFCRA savings, and if we do start scheduling a bit more part-time hours, and now that we have full-time vacancies filled, we expect this to be certainly an increase over the budget mod amount of 272, but also an increase over the original 2021 figure. Small increase over that figure, but that's a number that, as long as salaries keep going up, that number's going to keep going up right along with it. So, employee benefits, we did bump that up 100,000, just rising insurance costs. Our full-time vacancies are filled. And during the pandemic now, I mean, I think we have to plan for close to maximum HRA usage, our deductible reimbursement accounts. I mean, if nobody went to the doctor at all during a year, then that'd be a big savings. But the way it's been the last few months, I think we have to plan for a lot of medical expenses being utilized by staff. All right.
Even people who put things off until after the pandemic's over.
What's that?
Even people who just put things off until after the pandemic is over, they'll use them in the next fiscal year.
Yeah. So in any case, that all adds up to an increase of 459,000 over the budget mod amount. Although I think it is worth noting that it's about 160,000 increase over the original 2020-21 budget. So if you think about pre-pandemic budgeting, then it's not so out of whack.
Now, I understand that some of our part-time positions have been impacted by closures. Have none of the full-time positions been impacted by closures?
No. I mean, we've been paying our full-timers their full pay. I mean, maybe there's a handful of people.
I don't think any of our full-time employees have been affected because they've just shifted their workload. So anybody who was working evenings, or almost every full-time frontline staff person had like one evening a week or one weekend a month. So they've just gone to a straight Monday through Friday schedule during all of this. And even with facilities, it was the same situation. I think they generally had people on a weekend rotation, and they've just been moved to the week rotation. Any part-time person that we had working strictly evening and weekends, those were the most affected with loss of hours because we're not open for the evenings and weekends at the moment. But a lot of several part-time employees who were able to pick up hours during the day have been able to help fill some of those needs of staff shortages in certain situations when we've had the needs Monday through Friday due to any of our full-time members having to take any type of leave for FFCRA or New York COVID leave or anything of that nature.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so moving on to occupancy costs. North Albany, we set that at 10,000. That was Scott's preference, just in case North Albany is up and running at any point during 21, 22. We did want to budget for at least some rent payments there. Utilities, we did bump that up a little bit from the budget mod figure of 155 to 160. I think the expectation is we're still not going to be completely operational for at least part of the year. So we didn't think it was rational to increase that number too significantly, like back up to the pre-pandemic figure of 185. So building repair and maintenance, we did cut that by 5,000 from the pre-pandemic 2021 budget. There are a few lines, as you'll see going forward, that we did cut a little bit from the pre-pandemic budget figure. Service contracts, we left that alone. Custodial supplies, we left that alone. Obviously we cut it from the budget mod figure, but we reverted back to the pre-pandemic budget figure. And the same goes for vehicle maintenance. Construction grant expense corresponds with the revenue. And we did cut furniture building improvements by 50% down to 25,000. That line sort of acts as a catch-all for projects that aren't quite capital projects and aren't approved for capital project expenditures, but sort of just small, or obviously furniture projects would fall under that line as well. And that's a line that we can sort of control what we spend a lot more easily than something like custodial supplies, where if we run out of a certain supply, we have to get more to operate. So ultimately, we saw about $120,000 savings from the budget mod figure. It's comparable to the pre-pandemic budget figure too. So we did make some cuts there. Moving on to materials.
Before we do that, I just wanted to, just a quick question. I'm sorry if I missed this. You don't think that the school district is going to bill us for rent this year at all, and next year less than we owe?
So that was sort of what Scott came up with. He said, he doesn't think we're going to have to pay North Albany at all this fiscal year, and with it being the question mark that it is going forward. I think that was his suggestion to just put 10,000 in there as a placeholder with the assumption that we don't really know what is going to happen there, how they're going to bill us, if at all. So that is Scott's estimate at this point.
I know this is a question for Scott, but do we have it in writing that they're not going to bill us?
That I don't know. it's not something that I've seen. So yeah, I would defer to Scott on that.
Yeah.
I don't think we have anything in writing. It's obviously they've closed the building to us. So that's part of the conclusion. I believe I saw something that Adam Fireball Facilities is going to be reaching out regarding North Albany and access to our library, but I'm not sure how that would affect operations or anything like that. I don't think it would. We're still planning on keeping that branch closed. So I haven't seen anything official though, but I'm going to bring that up to him to see what we can do about that, or, you know.
I didn't know that we didn't have access at all. I mean, obviously it makes sense that it's closed. I wasn't surprised at all that it's stayed closed.
There's no external entrance at this point, and that was part of when we obtain when we started the agreement with North Albany. That was part of the agreement, was they were supposed to construct us the external entrances and stuff, and of course none of that's happened yet. So
They
Sure,
haven't,
well,
and when they took
construction process.
right.
when they took control of the building, they also changed all the locks and have failed to give us copies of the locks
Right.
or the keys.
And that's what Adam is going to try
That's
to
what we're
work
trying to
on
do.
in the very near future. He's going to address that.
Okay. That's not okay.
If you don't have access, then
Well, but then we have stuff in there, and is that stuff in good
Right.
condition? What's the building, temperature?
I
at?
know we removed technology except for our servers because they're kind of bolted down. We removed almost all of the technology from that location when we still had access to the building. Other than that, the books are still there. We don't
they're
know.
quarantined.
Yeah, they're obviously they're in great quarantine condition. So
Need that. Oh, man.
Okay, so that makes more sense, knowing that we don't have access at all and they haven't provided access. Why we wouldn't be paying? Because I can't imagine they would just decide to do that because we can't use it. I just can't
Right.
even.
And if they do obviously try to bill us for that and we still don't have access, we have a very strong argument.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so moving on to materials. We did cut books and AV by 25,000 from the pre-pandemic budget. So that's fairly significant. I think that's actually the most significant cut that we've made, aside from part-time salaries. So that's, I think that's worth noting. Periodicals we didn't touch. Central Library and Central Book Aid, those figures correspond with what we expect to pay for the Central Library portion of the New York State grants, the UHLS grants. So that offsets some of that revenue. Digital content we didn't touch. I think there was some talk about should there be any disruptions with periodicals, if we're not open, maybe funneling some of that money into digital content. We didn't change that on the budget for now, but that is something that you might see in a future budget mod, perhaps. Programming, we did cut by 20,000 from the pre-pandemic budget. The first budget mod, we had it at 76, so we just cut it slightly there. So there were some significant cuts in that section between programming and books and AV that resulted in a savings of 62,000 from the budget mod, and bit less than that from the pre-pandemic budget of $799. So we'll move on to administrative. Office and library supplies, we cut that by $5,000 from the pre-pandemic budget. Bank fees, we set that at $8,000. It should be right in that range. Memberships, we cut by $1,000. The pre-pandemic budget, it's the same as the budget versions. That's kind of that line doesn't change too much year to year, but looking at where we're at, it seems reasonable to leave it at 4,000. And we did cut postage by 1,000. Again, probably not. I should say we cut postage from the pre-pandemic budget of 6,000. We did increase it from the modified figure of 4,000. A lot of that has to do with ILL shipments not being as common during this time, but we would expect those to pick back up at some point in 21, 22. Publicity and printing, we did cut that 5,000 from the pre-pandemic budget. Training travel, we cut that by 15,000 from the pre-pandemic budget. And community relations, we cut by 5,000. So it's kind of cuts across the board for many of these lines, unfortunately. Professional services, that was one line we did actually raise pretty significantly from both the modified amount and the pre-pandemic amount. And that's really due to the expectation that we're going to have union contract negotiations going on, and as a result, pretty significant legal fees, probably in the neighborhood of 25, 30,000 to deal with that. So we did feel the need to bump that up. Tax or payments, we left that at the pre-pandemic budget of 100,000 based on the bills we've got, excluding the past due bills that we paid off. I think 100,000 is a pretty safe bet. ULON fees, that is based on the fee schedule that we got from UHLS. So that has gone up just a little bit. And liability insurance, we rounded up to 70,000 with the expectation that our insurance costs may go up a little bit. They actually went down last year a little bit. So we'll see. But also, if we do bond a treasurer and or myself and or Melanie again, then that's a few $1,000s right there. So overall, we managed to save about 24,000 compared to the modified budget total there, but we did go over the pre-pandemic total of 491. And then IT, the only thing we changed from the pre-pandemic budgets was IT hardware. That was based on Melanie's estimate that they were not going to need the full 101 that they had been given in the pre-pandemic budget. So we did see a little savings there, obviously, from the modified budget. It was very significant because of the prior year expenditures. But a savings of about 11,000 over the pre-pandemic budget. So all in all, and then the debt service, that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, that's based on a payment schedule that is predetermined, and the revenue corresponds with the expense, so it doesn't affect fund balance usage. So all in all, even with all those cuts and even with a slight increase in revenue, we're still looking at projected fund balance usage of 355,000. So I do think that if this were a normal year, it would probably be a good year to go for a tax levy increase. But you know, obviously this year that's not something that Scott wants to pursue, I think. So that's where we're at. Were there any questions on anything?
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Adam, for walking us through that. I'm sure this took you guys, you know, a lot. There were a lot of hard decisions made in this budget, I can tell. Before I call for a vote, did any trustees want to express any overall or general feelings about the budget? The staff asked for no tax levy increase, or just talk about any general issues. Karen?
Yeah, I just echo Sarah. You know, you guys did a great job, and I was thinking about Rebecca today about how you have to put the packet. You all do the packet and this the same week. That must have been fun. So I think you guys did a great job with the budget. To Adam's point, if it was a regular year, we might go for a tax increase. If it were a regular year, the income wouldn't be down. So maybe we wouldn't need to go for a tax increase. But I applaud not going for a tax increase this year. And I generally, in the past, have been uncomfortable with using fund balance, but I agree with Scott. This is exactly what it's for. We have fund balance far in excess of what we're proposing to use. And, you know, we may not end up using as much as we think based on past experiences. So, and if we do, then that's time to reassess next year. Like that's we can do that. We have that wiggle room with all that cushion. So I think you did a great job doing the best you can in a tough situation. And I think I don't really have any comments on budget. I'd be ready to vote.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you both just said. I don't think I have any more questions. And yeah, I think you guys did a really good job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I guess just to get my thoughts out there, I also agree with my fellow trustees and staff members. You know, it hurts to see a cut made to materials, you know, and other items that really, it's what a library does. You know, we are projecting to spend a higher amount of fund balance than we have historically. So I think some cuts had to be made in order to not go out for a tax levy increase. You know, with a lot of our neighbors just having a tough time right now because of the pandemic. So no, I really think this is, you know, the best budget that could have been proposed. And, you know, I'm going to be supportive of this. And with that, is there a motion to approve this budget draft and send it to the full board for their review?
So moved.
Karen? And is there a second?
Okay.
Tom, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, switching over to board docs. And the motion carries. So we will be sending this budget draft to the board. I believe the schedule is to present it to the board at our full board meeting on Tuesday, but then we have a special board meeting scheduled so that the full board can be walked through the budget. I believe that's February 23rd, 2 weeks after our board meeting.
Correct.
Thank you. So with that, we don't need to enter into executive session. And just in terms of next plans for this committee, I believe our council and staff is currently working on steps to be taken prior to posting the board treasurer job. So they will be keeping us up to date with that. I know the committee also wanted to review some of the treasurer reports. So that is also on our list of items to come back to. And actually, just to pull the committee really quickly, is there a preference in this committee whether to review and redesign how we would like to see reports done prior to hiring a new treasurer, or waiting until we have a new treasurer and inviting them in on the conversation? Is there any preference?
I know what I would like.
Okay.
And I just want it done the way that other libraries do it and the way that the school district does it. It's similar to the balance sheet, a little bit different, that has a starting and ending amount. But it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. But obviously I'm not the only opinion that matters.
But it's good to request also how it is best understood. If that's how you understand it better, then absolutely.
I mean, so it sounds like we don't necessarily have to wait. We can draft this up so we have something to hand the person that we hire on.
Draft what up?
If you want to explain, Karen.
Sure. So all the reading up and doing about the library treasurer for the past several years show that the treasurer's report that we have is profit and loss statement, and that's typically produced by the business office. That's normally produced by the business office. The treasurer's report is typically just an assessment of accounts at the beginning of accounts at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. How much money was how much in the accounts, how much money came in or out, and what the ending balance was. So I can send samples around. I can show you what the Albany City District looks like, and there's samples from library systems as well. It's just a very different thing, and the business office, the P&L that we've been calling the treasurer's report is supposed to be done by the business office, which I know they're doing anyway.
Yeah, so I guess just in terms of next steps, according to our committee description, our next meeting would be in May to go over budget modifications again, right before the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. And then, like I said, the other two issues that we've been working on, we continue to work on hiring a board treasurer, and we'll be working with staff and council offline to make sure that continues progressing, and then reformatting the treasurer's report. So I guess those are the upcoming items for our next meetings we should be expecting. And with that, I will take another motion, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
And
Karen?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? I have to get back. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for yet another productive meeting of the Finance Committee. And I will see everybody Tuesday for our regular board meeting.
Sounds great. Have a good night and a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
See you guys.
See ya.